See, on today's show, I've got some good news.
Yeah.
And I've got some bad news.
Oh.
So I'm just asking you, do you want to hear the good news first, or do you want to hear the bad news first?
You know, I always like to end on good news. Seriously.
Okay.
When people ask me that question, I always like, give me the bad first.
The bad news is there's a bill, a piece of legislation being proposed right now. You can see it on congress.gov, and it's called the COVID-19 Testing, Reaching, and Contacting Everyone Act. The Trace
You're talking about HR 6666.
Kind of a weird number.
Weird number.
And this is what it says it does here on this is the congress.gov. It reads, to authorize the Secretary of Health and Human Services to award grants to eligible entities to conduct diagnostic testing for COVID-19 and related activities, such as contact tracing through mobile health units and as necessary at an individual's residence and for other purposes. Z, do you want to know the good news?
Yeah, but please.
It hasn't passed yet.
Well, there's no way that's going to get by the Senate and or Trump. I mean, they're going to squash that like a little boy squashes a red ant.
Now, Z, you want to hear some more bad news?
I thought what?
I want to go good news, bad news.
Oh, you're doing
good
the
news,
good cop, bad
So
cop.
go
I
bad
see
news
what you're
first.
doing.
Good
I see
news.
what you're doing.
Now I'm going back to bad.
I see what you're doing now.
They're actually deploying people right now called tracers in the great state of California and Oklahoma to they've deployed the National Guard to go and begin identifying people who have the coronavirus and to separate them from those that don't have the coronavirus. And I thought we could play the audio, the uplifting audio from the gentleman in charge of the health department there in Ventura County, California. So now, without any further ado, listen to him. Listen to this gentleman do the opposite of rocking the mic.
We will find more and more people who have COVID-19. And again, we'll isolate every one of them, and we will find every one of their contacts.
Sounds fun.
And we will make sure that they stay quarantined, and we'll check in with them every day. In other words, what this program means is that we're going to do a more complete job, and we're going to do a more meticulous job of making it less and less possible for others in the county to run into someone with COVID-19 infection.
Ridiculous.
It's not just our county that's bringing more people on. There are going to be thousands of people hired who will be these contact investigators throughout the state. And this is occurring in many, many other states as well, perhaps all of the states in our country. We will be giving intensive training to these people.
Sure. Yeah.
Training not only for identifying and finding contacts, but also in terms of how to be sensitive about doing it. We also realize that as we find more contacts, some of the people we find are going to have trouble being isolated. For instance, if they live in a home where there's only one bathroom and there are 3 or 4 other people living there, and those people don't have COVID infection, we're not going to be able to keep the person in that home. Every person who we're isolating, for instance, needs to have their own bathroom. And so we'll be moving people like this into other kinds of housing that we have available.
What does that mean? Think about that. What is he saying? He's saying that the government is going to send people to your home and they're going to test your family for the coronavirus. And in the event that you don't have the ability to have one bathroom or one toilet available per person in your family, they're going to be separating your family to protect you, quote unquote, from the coronavirus.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom.
Yes, 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 and no.
Uh-oh.
We're going to end the show on a high note, but we have to just be real for a second. That's some scary crap right there.
It's not right. I mean, they basically are saying if you don't have enough bathrooms and your child has COVID-19, they will take them from your home forcibly and put them in wherever they're going to put them, some other home /
And they do such a good job managing things, these folks at the government.
Well, of course. And these are highly trained new people on the job after 3 days, people. It's absurd. I mean, it makes me think, wow. You talk about violating our constitutional rights. I mean, it's bad enough that we can't assemble. Now they're going to come in and potentially take your grandparents, your parents, your children, your second cousin who has to be living with you because they're having a hard time right now. I mean, that's borderline just like crazy out of a movie crazy.
So what I want to do today with the listeners, if I can, I want to make sure that everybody listening to this show has to confront the truth of what is going on for a moment, and then I want to give everybody an actual action plan. All right, so I want to make sure we confront the truth. Now, first off, Z, and again, for anybody out there that says, I don't like this because this is a conspiracy, can we deal with that first, the first objection to even, because some people, you begin to tell them these facts, and they right away hop into this is a conspiracy theory, I'm not going to listen. Well, see, at a certain point, once the actual text is on congress.gov, I'm putting a link to it. Once it's up there and you read the bill, it says H.R. 6666. Once you see it up there, at what point does it move from being a conspiracy to being a thing in your mind? Like, at what point do you go, okay, this is something we really need to be worried about now, as opposed to just a potential problem?
Well, I think it's all about the source. And as we all know, our entire life, we've heard rumors about somebody doing something or this happening or that corporation or this country. And we've all heard these second, third, handed things about stuff. And sometimes you believe it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the person that tells you is so convincing that you're like, well, maybe there's something to that. But the thing about it is it's always the source. And that's what I love about the Thrive Time show, our podcast, is that we don't talk about things about, something that is, second or third hand. I mean, when you go on the government's own website and you see the bill that has been presented for our Congress, and you can read it in its entirety, this is not smoke and mirrors. This is not the shell game. Where's the ball? Which one is it under right now? It's not any of that. I mean, it's an actual on the U.S. government's website, as every bill that gets entered into Congress is. Oh, by the way, I mean, they're not up there operating in the dark. I mean, it's all transparent for us to look at if we want to and see how our representatives that represent us are voting and what they're thinking about these things, or what they're writing about these things. And so whenever you can actually pull that bill and look at it, it's pretty ominous. I mean, it's pretty like, are you serious?
Can I, Devin, I want to get your take on this, and then John, I want to get your take on this too. How do you know people, and I'm not asking for their names, but do you know people that are in favor of the shutdown and of the government shutdown, of the government forcibly shutting down businesses, and what is the justification they have?
Yeah, I definitely know several people who have voiced their support for the shutdown. I would say their biggest argument is that every life matters. That it's if we can just save one life, then it's worth shutting down for a year to 18 months.
Well, let me do this then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with, let's start with that argument, and let's just debunk the first one, okay?
Well, in that case, we should get rid of automobiles.
Right, stairs.
Because,
definitely.
I mean, we should get rid of automobiles because automobiles cause a lot of deaths. I mean,
yeah.
They don't cause them, but the people driving them cause them. But if you don't have automobiles, nobody will ever die from an automobile accident ever again. Is that true?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you.
So let's play some audio here. So first off, who, for 5,000 mega points, Devin, you're going to be good at this game, I can tell.
Okay.
For 5,000 mega points, who initially predicted that 2.2 million Americans could die from the coronavirus?
No, would die. I'm sorry, would die.
Would die.
Would die.
Who
That's going to
predicted
be
it?
that's going to be Neil Ferguson.
Wow, that's impressive. That's
I thought
impressive.
Jamil Latif Abdul.
Yeah, okay, so let's say so Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson initially predicted that 2.2 million Americans were going to die from the coronavirus, and he's the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. And then he came back later and he says, oops. Now, usually when you shut a whole country down, you might say, oops, when you're wrong. Oops. And Neil Ferguson had to come back and he had to adjust the number of predicted deaths because the models were wrong. And so, Z, little fun fact here for you. I'm going to cue audio from the Scarf Queen, Dr. Deborah Birx, and this is Dr. Deborah Birx talking about Neil Ferguson's models. Let's cue the audio. Here we go.
Sure. These are really important facts for the American people. I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK about them adjusting completely their needs. This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK and 2.2 million deaths in the United States. They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000.
Now, Z, you're a math guy. If you go from 500,000
Yeah.
to 20,000 predicted deaths, so you're saying 500,000 people in the United Kingdom should die from the coronavirus,
Right.
and now we're bringing that down. We're breaking that down to 20,000. That would mean that somebody is off on their math by 25 times.
That's just math. Now you're just talking math.
And you built a pool in your backyard one time, right?
I did build a pool in my backyard.
And I'm not. This is not based on the real number. I'm just saying. Let's say the pool guy came into your house and he says, "Z, I got the quote for the pool. I got the quote."
Let's say it's $1,000, right?
Yeah, and Z, the quote. Well, the quote. You're going to go bougie, okay?
Oh.
And I know you initially talked about wanting to stick within $100,000 for the whole pool.
Oh wow.
The
Okay,
outdoor
you're going
living
real
room.
numbers.
That's
You're
real
going
numbers.
real numbers.
No, I mean you wanted
no,
the
that's
bougie
real-
pool,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
said I want to stick into 100,000, and I want you to know I am. I got close, and
I
I
got
got
real
close.
close on this deal.
I've been working with this guy named Neil Ferguson.
Yeah.
He's out of the UK.
The UK.
He makes models, and he's a part of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. His predictions are so good that our federal government uses them to shut countries down.
Right.
He's never wrong on his math. And so we're going to stick within the 100,000 budget. And so, do you want to know the bid I got here for you? The quote?
I mean, the final payment, right?
Yeah,
Because we built the pool, right? Because you said it was $100,000. So
Well, you told me to stick within 100,000. I have the final quote for you. It's going to be, now get ready for it. It's going to be $2.5 million, $2.5 million.
Let me get my checkbook and a gun, and I'll be right. I'll be right
The
back.
Neil Ferguson rule is you can be off by 25 times and still have credibility. So the way I look at it, we're good, right? I mean, you said stick within 100,000, and I say sure, yeah, it's 2.5 million. It's the Neil Ferguson rule.
What gets me is that when
I just Fergusoned you.
When he comes out and readjusts, when he's the one that causes the pandemonium about the pandemic.
Yes.
And then when he comes out and readjusts, the pandemonium doesn't adjust.
Right.
How is that possible?
So let's do another way to think about this. Imagine that that John over here, John's the vice president, okay? John, you're the vice president.
Thank you. The VP.
And Z, you're the president. So in this case, you're President Trump, and you're Vice President Pence, okay? And I happen to be Neil Ferguson, okay? I'm Neil Ferguson.
All right.
And Devin, you can be Fauci, okay? Follow me here, okay?
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I call you up
We're
and
all
I say, boop, 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 boop.
on the
Hey,
podium.
Devin. I mean, a.k.a. Fauci. Hey, buddy. Here's the deal. I have a model that predicts that 2.2 million Americans could die. Could you please share that with the president?
Okay, I'm on it.
All right. So now at this point, President Zoellner here, a.k.a. Trump, you have decided that Vice President Pence is going to head the operation for you.
Sure.
So Devin, now you're going to tell John here, you're going to tell Vice President Pence that 2.2 million Americans might die based upon your model. Go ahead and let him know.
Yeah, based on the models, 2.2 million people are going to die.
Now, as the vice president, what would be the very first question, John, that you would ask if somebody came to your office and said 2.2 million people should die and we need to shut the country down to mitigate the deaths? What would be the first question that you would probably ask of Dr. Fauci?
I would ask how they got there. Like, how can you prove that?
Okay. So in this case, he would come back and say, well, we've been doing some research and we feel pretty good about it.
And then who feels good about it? Like, who's coming up with
Neil
this number?
Ferguson feels good about it. And what else would you ask? Because all you know now is Neil Ferguson has predicted 2.2 million deaths. What else would you want to know before you shut the country down? Seriously.
Well, I don't. First of all, I would never shut the country down, but
Okay.
I would just ask, like,
Who's Neil Ferguson?
Yeah, I mean, I would just keep asking like why and how you got there, who this person is, and why they're so focused on shutting the country down.
Okay, well, I went ahead and you and I did the research together on this, and so I think the listeners should know. So Neil Ferguson, okay, he works for the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. Now, I've never heard of that name before. If you were the vice president, is this a common name?
No.
Now, would it be interesting to know, and I'm just curious about this, does it matter at all in your mind if you knew that the major backer of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics was Amazon, the very company that would benefit the most in the event that America's economy dramatically shifted and everybody had to stay home to order stuff? Would that at all be something you'd want to know?
Well, yeah, because that's the that's why you would want to shut. Like there's the reason why you would want to shut the country down.
Let me read this to you. This is from the McKinsey website, the McKinsey consulting firm. It reads this. Both Ford and Amazon announced in 2019 that they were investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the Abdul Latif Jameel-backed electric vehicle manufacturer Rivian, with Amazon planning on an initial purchase of 100,000 vehicles. See, why is that right there why should that have alerted Vice President Pence that this is probably not a good thing? I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, it would.
Number one, he probably. I'm assuming that.
Yeah.
That Pence wasn't told that.
Okay.
Pence didn't know that, and even if he did, you might go. There's in life. There's sometimes things that are called coincidences. You go, well, that's okay. Okay, that's a coincidence. They've happened in my life. I wasn't trying to do anything nefarious. Things just kind of happened to where it came into my favor, and it was like, whoa.
Okay, well, fine. Let me do this. I'm going to cue up the audio. This is of Tucker Carlson sharing a little bit more about Neil Ferguson. We want to consider the source. I mean, before you change your course, you want to consider the source, right?
Well, of course you do.
So let's cue up the audio. This is Tucker Carlson.
But I would like to point out that
sure.
There's probably no other place in the world that Amazon, i.e. Jeff Bezos, could buy electric cars. And so he had to go to the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute subsidiary to buy them at $150 million or something. Here's a check, quick check.
Let's listen to Tucker Carlson sharing with you, the listener, about who Neil Ferguson is. Here we go.
The problem is,
let me back it up here.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. One of the reasons that most of the Western world embraced unprecedented mass quarantines this spring was due to the work of a single man, a man you may not have heard of. He's a British academic called Neil Ferguson. Ferguson is a professor at a college in London, but he's also something of an international celebrity. He is best known for his dire predictions about pandemics. Ferguson seemed especially panicked by the Wuhan coronavirus. At one point, he suggested the coronavirus might be comparable to the Spanish flu of 1918. The pandemic that killed up to 100 million people. On February 28th of this year, as the disease spread throughout Europe, Ferguson publicly endorsed the Chinese model of quarantine specifically. Now keep in mind that as Ferguson spoke the words you're about to see, videos were circulating on the internet showing police in Wuhan throwing screaming citizens into the back of panel trucks and driving them to some unspecified internment somewhere. Ferguson must have known that the Chinese government's response in Wuhan was extreme and utterly inhumane. He endorsed it anyway. That's how serious Neil Ferguson was about this virus.
One has to adopt the sort of community measures which have been adopted, particularly in places like Wuhan and China, where you try to reduce contacts between people in the community. So the sorts of measures which are important are, first of all, if anybody has any sort of respiratory disease, cold, anything, stay at home until those symptoms are fully resolved.
Seems like kind of a reserved academic, and all of a sudden he's endorsing the Wuhan response. Leaders around the world paid attention to this. They took Ferguson's advice and locked down their entire populations. The British government asked Ferguson to help design its quarantines as a member of the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, SAGE. Ferguson was happy to help shut down the entire United Kingdom. But it turns out he wasn't that interested at all in participating in it personally. Today, the Telegraph newspaper reported that Neil Ferguson ignored his own lockdowns. While the rest of London stayed trapped indoors, indeed the rest of the country, Ferguson repeatedly invited his married mistress over to his apartment for sex. And then perhaps most striking of all, he was infected with the coronavirus at the time.
Sure he was.
Neil Ferguson became sick and tested positive in mid-March. We know this because he said so publicly at the time. Not long after that, he invited his mistress over. By doing this, he exposed her to a deadly virus. He also exposed her husband and her children back home.
You want to get...
When confronted today, Ferguson said this, quote, I acted in the belief that I was immune.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So Neil Ferguson, he's got a sexual feeling. He's got a need. He's got a need to succeed sexually. He's got to spread his seed.
Well, he became famous, and he actually got to upgrade his, choices, and so.
I'm just saying, would that at all matter if let's just pretend now. Let's go back to this. John, if you're the vice president, and you now know that the guy who predicted 2.2 million Americans might die or should die from the coronavirus, and then you find out that he's not observing his own quarantine that he recommends and that he's having an affair, and that Dr. Deborah Birx has just shown now that his math is off by 25 times, at what point do we lose credibility and stop being scared?
No, I think, that's 100%. Like, if you did that at any other job, if you were wrong by 25 times, you would not have that job anymore. So how does he get away with it? How are we like, oh, well, he meant well, I guess.
So, Z, I want to get your take on that. I mean, what point is it when he's off by 25 times? Which, by the way, we discovered this nearly 2 months ago that he was off by 25 times. Would that be the time to maybe say
that's more disturbing?
Shut it.
I mean, his moral failures are one thing. That's kind of the sidebar over here of the guy that really what's he about? But when he comes out and he adjusts his numbers by 25 times, you have to think about that for a second.
25 times.
The weatherman's more accurate than that.
True. And
like
that's saying something in Oklahoma. To say that 500,000 people in the UK are going to die and then it takes it down to 20,000, and to say that 2.2 million Americans are going to die and then takes it down to 80,000. I mean, it's kind of like, why did we get all hot and bothered about it? And some may say, well, that's because we're all social distancing and staying away from each other and nobody's doing anything about anything, and so therefore it's not going to be a lot more deaths. No, we're flattening the curve, folks. It's going to be the same amount that get infected. We're just spreading them out so that we could get the hospitals ready to go, which are now empty, waiting on COVID patients, which are not there.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to give you some more facts. Forbes reports. Again, Forbes is a business publication. I will give you other sources in just a moment. But Forbes reports that 66% of the new cases of the coronavirus in New York are from people that haven't left their home during the past 2 months. Now, see, at a certain point, your argument, I was telling John this morning, at a certain point, your argument for keeping the country closed starts to kind of go like this. You go, see, we got to keep it closed because, we don't
want to
right?
Every life matters. We don't want to.
Every life matters, man.
My 85-year-old grandfather with dementia in the hospital who doesn't know his name, his life matters. I mean, I know it does. I'm not making a joke of that. But what I'm telling you is this, is that viruses have been here from the beginning of time. Viruses will be around us till the end of time. And they come and if you're old, if you're immunosuppressed, and not even then, I mean, the flu last year killed 180 children, healthy children.
180 healthy children. The flu, 80,000 people.
We don't talk about that.
This is according to CNN. This is according to the Center for Disease Control.
But like Dr. Birx said, can we believe anything they say?
Okay, well let me quote Dr. Birx. I mean, there's just so many reasons to debunk the coronavirus. Okay, so let's make sure we get this. Okay, so Neil Ferguson his model was off by 25 times. Can we count that as one reason?
What's so funny is that it's not like data just came in and he's off. He's the one that came back out and said, "Oh, you know what? I was off.
I didn't carry the one correctly.
I didn't. Not from the not. I missed a decimal or 2
yeah,
points.
I meant the other side.
I mean, it should have gone left instead of right, or right instead of left. I had a couple of scotches when I did that calculation, and I'm sorry. I really am, world. I'm sorry that you've now completely shut down. And you know what? I remember seeing the videos from Italy. It was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I mean, people singing off balconies because they can't get around other people, and it's just mass chaos in this country. There was a lot of 99.2% of people that,
according to Bloomberg, 99.2% of all the people that died
right
from the coronavirus in Italy were elderly people with deeply compromised immune systems.
Right. And so you're kind of going, okay, if you're 80 years old and you have cancer, stay home. We get that. And you should be doing that through every flu season. Oh, by the way, because the flu took 80,000 Americans last year. I saw the ABC interview of Trump, which was just kind of atrocious in my mind. And they had this 70,000 number of deaths on there, which Dr. Birch now, folks, listen, she's one of the ones appointed by Obama, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
She's one of the ones that's up there on the podium.
The scarf queen.
Yes. And she is like giving advice to Fauci. She's talking to Fauci. Fauci's her mentor.
Yeah.
I mean, she's right on the front line of this thing.
The front line.
When she gets on there and says our own CDC, she can't believe. And she thinks the numbers are inflated by at least 25%. So anyway, so they had 70,000 deaths. And Trump's down in San Antonio. He traveled out of D.C. for the first time. He's down in San Antonio. I don't know if you saw the interview. It was last week. And the interviewer looked at him and said, "What do you say to the 70,000 deaths of those families? What do you say to them?" And I'm like, why did you ask him last year what he said to the 80,000 that died from the flu? What do you say to him about the tens and hundreds of thousands that dies from car wrecks or heart attacks? Or
And what a false question, too. It's like more people have died, like tonight, more people have died from the coronavirus than died in Vietnam. Every year. This is the same story.
Every year they do. For multiple reasons.
So point one here. Neil Ferguson's model was off by 25 times. Does that give us one reason to discredit him?
That's what he said, and it might even be more than that, but that's what he said.
Is that okay? Do you at least think that's a justification to discredit this whole panic?
Yes.
Okay, so let me give myself one mega point.
Well done.
Point two. The Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics predicted that they created the models. And I again, with all due respect, and by the way, once I say that, I can say whatever I want to say.
That's true.
So, with all due respect, who cares what the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics thinks about anything?
Nobody heard about him. Nobody heard about this Neil Ferguson.
This isn't the Mayo Clinic here.
I know.
Get out of here.
I know. But I will say this.
Yeah.
That Jeff Bezos is able to use his money and buy 100,000 electric delivery vehicles from anybody he would like to buy them from. And that is free enterprise. And that is capitalism.
I love his ability to see the future and to know he needs 100,000 additional vehicles at a time where there's no real evidence that he's going to need 100,000. That's a lot of vehicles. 100,000 vehicles.
Well, it's twice as many as 50,000.
I mean, he can. It's almost like he could see the future.
It's half as many as 200,000. I mean, he could have ordered
200,000.
It's almost like
You're right.
It's almost like he and Neil. He says, Neil, here's the deal. If you just hypothetically, if you told everybody that 2.2 million Americans might die from this, what would happen to the way people would spend? I mean, if you told everyone, Neil, to stay home, to mitigate the virus and to stay home, what do you think you could do that? I mean, I'm not saying
that's
you
hypothetical.
Let me play audio. This is Neil Ferguson's pro tips for how to save ourselves from the virus. Listen to Neil Ferguson. I can't stand this guy. I will suffer through it for the listener. Here we go.
Oh my! Do I have to?
You have to.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Fundamental decisions have to be made by countries as to whether they're going to follow what WHO is recommending and what the Chinese did.
Now, Z, why would we not ever as a country want to follow what the Chinese did? Just period.
Because we can't trust them.
Right.
They're going to tell us, they're going to do one thing and tell us another thing. And if people haven't figured that out by now, I mean, they do currency manipulation, they do virus manipulation, they do everything manipulation.
Amnesty International shows that Chinese people disappear all the time.
And they're communists on top of that. I mean, why on earth would that be our source of information? It's kind of like CNN's now. It's like China's news network. I mean, it's crazy. Folks, it's crazy that we are...
Can I play audio to you? This is disturbing audio.
Okay.
But this is audio and footage of the Chinese. This is how the Chinese, we go house to house, and we check people to see if they have the coronavirus. This is the method he's talking about.
Contact tracing.
But hold on.
Contact tracing.
Give me a pause. But my point is, did they? They might have filmed a couple of dudes in little uniforms, roughing up some, hey, Billy, we're going to come in and we're going to, we're jerk your kid away from you, but just act real sad and whatnot. We're going to film this for the world. I mean, can we even trust that? I don't know.
Well, these
I
are
mean,
these are
anything out of-
videos.
If you say this came from China, my first thing is what?
This came from the
Doubt.
this comes from the Guardian News, and the Guardian News is a it's a news network that tries to guard your freedoms. So let me just play this video for you real quick.
Okay.
A guy's on a subway,
Oh yeah.
and the police guy. They just yank him off. Oh, you have the corona. You're coming with me, sir. Look at this one. This one's the one that really freaks me out. Look at this one. Look at this.
Hold on, pause for a second.
Sure.
The part about that video that's so funny is he doesn't have gloves and masks.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
he
so
doesn't have
close.
anything. I know, and he's grabbing the guy
Yo.
and jerking him off the thing. I mean, I think it's sometimes kind of okay. I don't want to be the conspirator, but is there a chance that China kind of pumped up things a little bit? Because when Neil Ferguson comes in, we should follow the Chinese model
Look at this.
of jerking people off of subways that
Look
have
at this. This is a lady. They're just pulling her out of her house. Look at this. They're yanking a person out of their house. Like, how is it possible that even we would ever even consider going with the? I mean, so again,
How is it possible that you live with someone intimately and they have the virus and you haven't been exposed to it yourself? I mean, I don't understand that. I don't understand. Listen to me. I'm not talking immunology 101. I'm not talking about viruses 102, which is a sophomore class, or 201. But I'm talking about, okay, if someone's been living together intimately their whole life, and you come in there and your test, which there's no test out there that's 100% accurate, you come in and say, oh my gosh, you test positive for COVID-19. So we're going to jerk you out. Everybody else tests negative. I mean, what can you say the words false positive? Or can you say the words of like, they're already living, they've been living with them intimately. You think they've been exposed to it? I mean, we've had a lot of coronaviruses come around the world for years. And there's a lot of theories out there right now about your immunology, your antibodies to different categories of viruses that come around. And some people just don't get that sick with it. So did the whole other family already have it and be done with it months ago? And now mom has it. They're going to jerk her out of the house. I mean, it's kind of like, you got to understand, it's semi-crazy. And when you look at the actual death rate of it and who it affects, why do we care?
This is true. There's just so few people that die once infected with the coronavirus. And I want all the listeners to think about this. Again, the person who initially made the models, his name was Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson's report was off by 25 times. 2, the source comes from the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics that nobody had ever heard of before this. 3, the majority of the new coronavirus cases in New York are from people staying at home.
Shock.
66%. Now, point number 4. John, this is an interesting thing. The president of Tanzania, he's a great guy, the president of Tanzania.
I have a feeling where Tanzania is?
I have a feeling that we would get along very well. I have a feeling.
His name's John. Nice.
I think we would get along with him very well because he says,
Great
you know
name.
what? The founder of Intel, Andy Grove, once said, only the paranoid survive. Ronald Reagan says, trust but verify. So he decides, you know what I'm going to do? So you know what the president of Tanzania said? He said, I'm going to.
Oh, I know.
He says, I'm going to
do a little test.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a test of the test because all this, the entire argument for all of this being shut down is the number of cases. Yeah, the deaths are low, but the case numbers are high, and we got a
lot of cases. A lot of sick people.
So U.S. News reports that the president of Tanzania decided to mail in samples of a goat, and of a fruit.
A fruit.
A pawpaw fruit.
Do we know a pawpaw? What is a pawpaw fruit?
Let me
look that up.
Twice as big as just a regular paw.
Oh, it's twice.
Yeah,
it's twice the paw.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Here it is.
That just makes sense.
It's a small deciduous, I think it says, tree native in the eastern United States and Canada, producing a large. There it is. There's a video here on how to cut a pawpaw.
For actually serving up the pawpaw fresh.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
There are a number
Sorry
of
I
ways to do
asked.
it.
Okay.
I'm
so
now
there-
really
so-
sorry I asked
So,
about
so
that.
it turns out that again, he sent in a sample of fruit and a goat, and it came back and said, "Yep, we've got human coronavirus."
COVID.
False positive. Can you explain what a false positive means there, sir?
A false positive is when they say you have something and you don't have something. It's kind of like if you walked up to some dude that doesn't have any money but acts like he does, and you say, "Man, you got money." That's a false positive. Yeah. Okay. And we know the song about that. But what I'm saying is that our testing, I mean, our first kits out of the CDC were wrong, we're bad, we're incorrect. And now why, Clay, I'm going to ask you a question. May I ask you a question?
Sure.
And it's going to take some, you can't put a link onto your answer because
Got it.
there's no facts on it. But why, and the depth, I don't know anybody has researched COVID-19 pandemic more than you have, by the way. Have you slept in the last month?
I told Vanessa I'm going to work on it every single day for 15 hours a day, every single day until we get it done.
Just 15? I thought it was more than that. I thought it was 16 or
That's
17.
what we talked about it.
Okay. Yeah, you got to leave a little time for business time. So what I'm asking is this. Why? I mean, Deborah Birch, Dr. Birch, God bless her little heart.
Yep.
I mean, right on the front lines of this.
The Scarf Queen.
The Scarf Queen came out and said, I can't believe anything the CDC says to us. And I think they're overinflating by 25%. Why would they? What do they have to gain? Where is their game on inflating the numbers of COVID-19 cases and or deaths?
Okay. This is going to be something that the listeners, I hope you guys get this. I hope you can maybe take notes here. Entrepreneurship is where you find a problem and you solve it.
Right.
You make money when you find a problem and you solve it in exchange for money. So I'll kind of go back and forth with John on this. But John, Dr. Fauci, according to Newsweek and other stories here, and we put a link on the show notes, he funded the creation of the coronavirus. He funded the research it's called gain of function research. It's where you take a coronavirus out of an animal and you increase its virality, its ability to be contagious. That alone is crazy. How does Fauci stand to benefit, John, when Fauci has the patent for the vaccine that he wants everyone in the world to take? How does that benefit it? And maybe how does that benefit Fauci if he's the one who's making the virus or funding the virus? That then the only way to cure yourself from the virus is using his vaccine. How is that a conflict of interest?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to buy the vaccine. So we were reading that book, and it talks about, I think it was per HIV test, it's $22. And so the coronavirus vaccine is supposed to be even more expensive than that, but they want every person in the world to get it. You know, and so if however many people there are in the world times 22, that's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
It's more than $87.
That is true.
It's more than. Let me do the math. If you take all of the people in the world,
7 billion
do the Neil
people,
Ferguson math.
$20.
So
you do the.
It's almost as much money.
It's a lot of
Let's
money.
sweat this. It's almost as much money as our government has pumped into our economy because they have sent everybody home for 6 weeks. Almost as much.
Now
we may have our first trillionaire with this deal.
Now, okay, so point number 2, who stands to benefit? Amazon funded the Abdul. Again, you hate to. You don't want to say anything that's speculative. You want to give facts. So, Amazon funded the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. And I have a link to a website called McKinsey Consulting.
Be more specific. They didn't fund it. They purchased 100,000 electric delivery cars.
I'm reading the specific text here right now.
Okay, well, let's be
from
right on it.
McKinsey, it says both Ford and Amazon announced in 2019 that they were investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the Abdul Latif Jameel-backed electric vehicle manufacturer Rivian, with Amazon planning an initial purchase of 100,000 vehicles. And that was in 2019.
Right.
Now, Amazon, according to CNBC right now, I'm pulling it up, Amazon stock hits an all-time high as it sees unprecedented demand.
Unprecedented.
So the big winner here is, again, the guy who predicted the panic that caused you to stay home, Neil Ferguson, is financially supported by Jeff Bezos, the guy who's the big winner, from everybody shifting all of their purchases online.
Follow the money.
Money.
I love that line. And it's so true in about everything in life. You go, what are most, like the wealthiest guy in the world, does he really want more? Does he? Does he really want more? I mean, he was the 4th wealthiest guy in the world. Did he want more? When he was the 3rd wealthy, when he was the 10th, when he was the 3rd, when he was the 2nd, when he was the wealthiest guy. I mean, now you're the wealthiest guy in the world. Does he want more?
Now, people say, well, where does Bill Gates fall into this? Well, the question I would have is why did Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci, and the World Health Organization and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, that's the group run by Fauci, why did they all decide to work together to create a global vaccine? I mean, John, it's on the Gates Foundation website.
Yeah.
Why would they all be working together to create a vaccine for a global pandemic if there wasn't a global pandemic?
Well, they own it. So, I mean, they're going to make all of the money on it.
Okay, here's
no, wait a second, guys. You guys are breaking this down to just dollars.
Now let's talk about this.
Just dollars.
Why would now Dr. Fauci, he says all the time, he always says hydroxychloroquine is not a valid tool. The old malaria drug is not a valid. It's not a valid weapon to fight against the coronavirus. It's not a good therapy. Why would he be so passionate about it not being a good therapy when in 2005, it's right here on the website, on the National Institute of Health. Why would, let me read the excerpt from the National Institute of Health page. It says, chloroquine is a potent inhibitor of SARS coronavirus infection and spread. Why would he be for chloroquine in 2005, and why did he forget, John? Why do you think that Dr. Fauci might have forgotten how in favor of it he used to be?
Well, he doesn't own that one, so it doesn't make any sense to promote a product that you're not going to make any money on when you have this other one waiting in the wings.
Even when somebody might die from it?
Yeah, they don't care about that.
Every life matters, John.
Not to him.
Now, come on. Now, oh, my goodness.
Fascist Fauci.
Now, why don't we do this? I'm going to cue up the audio real quick. This is Bill Gates. I'm going to cue up the audio. This is Bill Gates in 20... This would be Bill Gates. It'll be at the... let me see here. Bill Gates, the year is 2015, May 27th, 2015. And this is Bill Gates talking about how he's making some investments now in companies that do models for pandemics. Here we go.
And so in the annals of epidemic history, that's the big event. I funded a disease modeling group that uses computer simulation, and that work has been phenomenal in helping us target our polio eradication resources and which parts of Nigeria should we work harder on. And it's very natural, if you have a group like that, to say, hey, look at something like a Spanish flu in the modern day. Health systems are far better. And so you think, hey, that wouldn't be very bad. Well, we tried it. And there are...
We tried the model. He's saying, we have a team that can make models, and so now we thought, let's go ahead and try it. And he'll say, certain assumptions have to be made. Here we go.
There are some assumptions we had to make.
Okay, sure.
But what we showed is that the force of infection because of modern transport, which compared to 1918 is over 50 times as great. And so if you get something like a flu and you look at that map of how within days it's basically in all urban centers of the entire globe, that is very eye-opening. That didn't happen with Spanish flu in the past.
Z, why is that sort of why does it raise concerns that when the guy who's making the vaccine, Bill Gates, is also the one making the models?
I have a nose, and I go around. It's one of my 5 senses, by the way. Well, not my nose, but my sense of smell, which is actually through my nose.
Oh,
it's crazy. I know. You may not have known that.
Chart that. Let me write that down.
I'm a doctor. I'm not a real doctor, but I'm kind of a sort of doctor. Okay,
we'll get a notepad real quick.
And sometimes things just don't smell right. And, I know there's things and I mentioned this earlier in the show, coincidences and things like, that's a coinkadinky, as we used to say back in the day. And yet,
what are the chances?
Yeah, what? And then you look, you sit back and a puzzle's a fun thing. You get all these little pieces and you look at each little piece and you go, Oh, I wonder what that could be.
Oh,
What
that could be.
Yeah. And then you get all these pieces together and you go, these are all kind of weird pieces. Then you start kind of putting them together. And all of a sudden you sit back and you go, oh my gosh. Now we have a full-fledged picture of you fill in your own blank listening right now. And I'm telling you, it smells, this whole thing smells, well, it doesn't smell good. That's what I'll say. And when you look at, oh my goodness, I mean, it's like, could this many people really be coordinating all these different things, you know? And then you think about, you know, I've seen all the videos on YouTube about, it's all this crazy, then it's down. And I see all these things on Facebook, down. You know, Trump's ads, down. I mean, it's like, wow, we've got 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups of people that are like the wealthiest of the wealthy.
Yep.
And I can't speak for them, but it appears they do not like our president for their own particular reasons I won't go into. And I mean, this man, God bless him, I mean, he's been attacked by Russia, which has been debunked now.
Yep.
Ukraine, impeachment, and now we have a so-called from Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
The king of credibility.
The king of credibility.
Yes.
Pandemic.
Yes.
That we need to shut down our country.
Shut
now
it
we
down.
poured in $2.5 trillion. And just the other day, California and neighboring states were saying, hey, we need another trillion. We need another trillion. While their governor is buying masks from China at for $1 billion. It's like, what is going on?
Let me do this. I'm going to cue up audio if I can real quick. This is President Trump speaking 39 minutes ago. And we're going to play some of the audio of President Trump's press conference here, just so that way all the listeners can get an idea of what the president has to say about these cases. See, does that sound fair?
39 minutes ago. Wow, that's I think when we started the show.
Yeah, here we go. Let me cue it up. Here we go.
Do it, dude.
Here we go. He's looking good.
We're here today to provide an update on the unprecedented testing capacity developed by the United States, the most advanced and robust testing system anywhere in the world, by far. This afternoon, I'll also announce new steps that we're taking to make tests even more widely available. To battle the virus, my administration marshaled every resource at our nation's disposal: public, private, military, economic, scientific, and industrial, all at your disposal. We launched the largest manufacturing ramp-up since the Second World War. There's been nothing like it since. At the center of this industrial and scientific mobilization was the development of our coronavirus testing capabilities. In the span of just a few short months, we've developed a testing capacity unmatched and unrivaled anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. This is a core element of our plan to safely and gradually reopen America, and we're opening and we're starting, and there's enthusiasm like I haven't seen in a long time. Every American should be proud of the amazing array of talent, skill, and enterprise our nation has brought to this challenge. In 3 months, the FDA has authorized more than 92 different tests, and over 9 million have been performed here in the United States. 3 weeks ago, we were conducting roughly 150,000 tests per day.
Real quick time out. See, with 9 million tests that we've done, why would we have a higher number of cases than other countries if we've done the most testing? If we've done the most testing, why would we also have the most number of cases?
Because the disease is not a killer. People have it. It's like the flu season.
I think you understand logic. I've heard people, John, tell me, they go, you know, after we've done more testing than anybody else in the world,
right?
And now we have more cases. It's so scary. I'm like, this is good news.
Right.
It's good news that we have the most number of tests and the most number of cases, because if you test more people, then you're going to find more cases.
Right. And when we get the true death rate, when we get the true death numbers, then we'll be able to actually ascertain, is this really worse than the yearly flu virus that comes around?
Well, before we go back to Trump, I want to share with you the things that are being proposed that we need to do to stop the coronavirus. Here are the things that are being. These are things that actual politicians are presenting right now as their plan to stop the coronavirus. This is not speculative. This is real stuff.
Right.
One, California says we need to have a currency that's entirely entirely done without no cash, no credit cards. We need to reinvent currency. We got to reinvent currency.
For sure.
The governor of California wants to reinvent currency. Bill Gates says we should ban churches. Maybe forever. I mean, this is Bill Gates. Let me listen to the audio of Bill Gates
Not
here.
only churches.
This is audio of Bill Gates explaining that we should probably ban churches,
Large gatherings.
forever. I mean,
Ever.
I mean, that's when you say ever.
Until they get the vaccine. That's what I love about this clip you're going to play. Until they get the vaccine.
Let me cue up. This is Bill Gates.
It was $22 back in the day. Inflation's raised the price a little bit.
Okay, this was a interview he did, and it was on. Let me pull it up real quick here. This was on CBS this morning. Bill Gates. Here we go.
Throughout the country, those are the two things to test and trace contacts of the remote.
Here we go.
But for places that do the shutdown well, you should start to see that peak.
Oh, thank you.
Then, if you go another 4 weeks, those numbers will come down quite a bit if you maintain the measures, if you're not getting lax in those things. And then you can get it to a low enough level that the ability to test and trace contacts of the remaining people will be very, very high. And so some degree of opening up is possible. I've said 6 to 10 weeks, but again, every week as we look at those numbers, it'll help us see how much longer we'll have to be in this really extreme mode where...
Can you debunk Bill Gates, please, sir? If you were sitting there having a debate with him and you said, okay, Bill Gates says this, Dr. Zoellner, you say this. What would you say to counteract or to counter what Bill just said?
Well, the problem with Bill Gates is he has a different, he has a different end game than I do.
We want you to get a vaccine that he makes because he's the one making the vaccine. That
I remember growing up buying a computer, and I remember just being forced upon that computer his software.
Oh yeah,
and that was it. I mean, you couldn't get it. But I'm old.
You had to have
55.
Microsoft on the computer,
right,
to run the computer.
And I remember some of the guys they were policed hard. I mean, it's like they came down. They tried to take one serial number and put it on multiple units. I mean, they got caught and they got busted. I mean, it was dogs and cats living together, acid rain.
If you bought a computer, it had to have Microsoft on it or it didn't work.
Right.
Which is why the Microsoft got involved with a lawsuit with the United States in 2001. It's a major antitrust lawsuit. And the U.S. government accused Microsoft of illegally maintaining its monopoly. And the only person they had the case nailed down, the guy who was supposed to testify and say, he's are guilty.
Guy.
The guy they had, their number one, their A number one all-star number one draft pick.
Jobs.
Yes, their witness. And Steve he took over Apple for the second time. Apple was a failing company. He took over the company to fix the company, and they didn't have any money. And Bill Gates called him up and said, "Hey, I would like to invest $150 million in you. We just also happen to be involved in a lawsuit where you are the star witness." And then just remarkably, Steve Jobs, for whatever reason, after receiving the $150 million, just didn't testify against his number one arch rival and enemy, the man who had been forcing his monopolistic practices on the consumers for years and years. And therefore, Steve Jobs never did testify against Bill Gates.
Capitulated, yes. So I'm going to ask you a question. What's one of my core statements that I say a lot?
People change seldom.
So we have Bill Gates here.
Yeah, Bill.
And what's his end game in this? He's developing a vaccine. We've seen the patents. We've read the patents.
Uh-huh.
They're all online. I mean, this stuff is public information, which, by the way, he made his patent number.
Oh, man. The filing number for this, real quick, let me just read this to you because this is nuts. He has a cryptocurrency patent right now. And of all of the numbers he could have chosen.
To inject into humans.
Of all of the publication numbers, he chose W02020, okay? 060606.
Yeah, and
it's just
taunting. That's his choice. That's his choice.
Right.
He can pick whatever he wants. And so when you ask me how to debate Bill Gates, it's kind of like, he's sitting back in his, high chair, and he's, telling, until we get we shouldn't do any public gatherings until everybody has a vaccine, because then we can all be well aware, well sure.
You'd have to say, well, sir, didn't you make the models that predicted the problem that only your vaccine can solve? Is that a monopoly?
One would think it was. And so I would say, I would walk up to him and first I'd throat punch. And then you do, and then you say the two words. You say bull, boop, poop, whoop, whoop, bull poop.
Right.
And I tell you what, it's rather alarming.
It is.
Shocking. And even the average person now, I'm telling you right now, it's about to the tipping point.
The average person now knows of this.
The average person's going, something doesn't smell right. Because we all have a nose, we all have a smeller. And us, the United States citizens are all pretty savvy on, like, okay, what's going on now? I mean, when these models change dramatically, when numbers are being elevated, even the lady that's probably in charge of keeping those numbers high comes out and says, I can't trust the numbers. I mean, folks, we're dealing with something that the problem is we don't know the truth. That's the problem. I said on another show, I said, even if China told us the absolute bare bones truth, I mean, they came clean and said, you know what, we're China and we're used to, telling you the false things. And here's actually what happened in the Wuhan lab, in the Wuhan province, in our country, China. Here's the real deal.
And think about all
we wouldn't believe them.
And think about all the censorship going on right now. Facebook. I mean, when you could, previous to this, there has been some. John, you've seen some crazy videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've seen kids get beat up on YouTube. The videos kept up there.
Yeah.
I've seen car accidents. The most foul, terrible things are up there, and now they're censoring those things. Censorship.
Quickly, yeah.
What happened to the freedom of? What happened to free speech? I mean, so we're talking about. I mean, again, is it time to debunk this? I think we're there, folks. But listen to what President Trump has to say. Here we go.
Oh yeah, finish.
Now we're doing approximately 300,000 tests per day, a 100% increase, and it will go up substantially from that number. This week, the United States will pass 10 million tests conducted, nearly double the number of any other country. We're testing more people per capita than South Korea, the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Sweden, Finland, and many other countries, and in some cases combined. On Friday, the FDA authorized coronavirus antigen test, an alternative testing technology that can be much more readily manufactured. Quidel Corporation, which makes this newly authorized point-of-care test, estimates that it will be able to manufacture 150,000 tests per day, immediately increasing to 300,000 tests per day within just a few weeks. To further expand our nation's testing capabilities, this afternoon I am announcing that my administration we've got this all approved, it's all done, is sending $1 billion to America's states, territories, and tribes. So this has all been approved. We've gotten it done, completed. The money is going out. This major investment will ensure that America continues to conduct more tests than any country on earth by far. I said from the beginning that the federal government would back up the states and help them build their testing capability and capacities, and that's exactly what's happened. This partnership has truly flourished. We have really had a very good relationship with the states and the governors and other representatives within the states, a relationship like I think I can honestly say has not been seen in this country for many, many years. The governors and us are working together very closely, not only on testing, but on ventilators, where we have a capacity that's at this point virtually unlimited. And we're sending ventilators, as you probably heard from other countries. We're sending many, many thousands of ventilators to other countries because they're in tremendous need. And I think building up a lot of goodwill, but much more importantly than that, we're saving a lot of lives. Most states are now doing a great job. My administration located 5,000 machines in 700 labs across all 50 states, and governors have learned how to maximize these testing resources. The federal government is also supporting states with vital supplies, quick approvals of new tests, and one-on-one coaching from the team here at the White House on how to increase capacity and increase it very quickly. In recent weeks, we've held multiple conference calls with every state, as well as with D.C. and Puerto Rico. We jointly developed testing projections and goals for each state for the month of May, altogether totaling 12.9 million tests. Think of that, 12.9 million tests. Today I'm announcing that my administration will provide the collection supplies to help states meet their targets and meet them rapidly. During the month of May, FEMA and HHS will be delivering 12.9 million swabs to states nationwide. We already have them. The delivery will be very quick. We're prepared to provide millions of additional swabs if any state is on a pace to surpass its goal. And their goals are very high. We've set them very high. We've told them to set them very high. My administration will also provide approximately 9 million transport media, which are used to transfer swabs to the lab processing, a complicated process, but we've made it simple. As a result of these actions, every single state will be able to test more people per capita in May alone than South Korea has tested in 4 months since the outbreak began. This major commitment is possible because of the massive mobilization of American industry, including Puritan Medical Products, U.S. Cotton, Abbott Labs, and Thermo Fisher. Some of these incredible companies produced rapidly for us, and their products are here with us this afternoon. These are all different products that were literally just developed. And if you can imagine that, and these are the best
COVID testing
machines
gear
and
on
the
the
best equipment anywhere in the world, and
on the
other
podium
countries
there.
are calling us, and we're trying to work as much as we can, not only on ventilators, but also with testing. My administration also continues our tireless effort to expand testing in the most underserved communities. Through our partnership with the private sector, leading pharmacies and retailers are now operating over 240 testing sites across the country, and that's in addition to all of the other sites that we have working. 70% of these sites are located in communities with unique vulnerabilities. There will be more than 300 sites by the end of this week, and retailers.
So what I'm getting here is there's a lot of testing going on.
A lot of testing.
A lot of testing going on. Now let's go hop in a little bit further into his press conference. Here we go.
Democrat and Republican, and I think overall they're making very good decisions.
More questions.
Good.
Here we go.
All the ones behind the rope. That's interesting. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said in your comments earlier, we have met the moment, we have prevailed. To you, sir, is the mission accomplished, even with 1.4
No,
million?
we prevailed on testing is what I'm referring to. That was with regard to testing. You never prevail when you have 90,000 people, 100,000 people, when you have 80,000 people as of today, when you have the kind of death you're talking about, when you have potentially millions of people throughout the world that are dying. That's not prevailing. What I'm talking about is we have a great testing capacity now. It's getting even better. There's nobody close to us in the world.
May I disagree with Mr. President for a second? Is that okay? Can I disagree with the President? Sure. Okay. I would just say I feel though his heart is in the right place. He wants to minimize the number of deaths.
Right.
I get it. And there are millions of people that die every year from the flu. But we really need to
from
stop
other stuff too.
We need to stop apologizing though for the fact that because what we're finding now, and it's not my opinion, it's not speculation. The New York Times, as we talked about earlier on today's show, the New York Times itself has come out and pointed out with great detail that the number of people dying from other things has gone way down.
Way down.
Because of the guidelines with which they are supposed to diagnose the deaths of people. It's with COVID, it's bizarre. And so with COVID, there are many. Let me just play the audio. This is Dr. Scott Jensen from Minnesota, and he's explaining to the listeners out here.
He's also a senator.
He's a senator and a doctor in Minnesota. Let me cue up the audio. This is what he has to say about the way they diagnose COVID.
In Minnesota, as a physician, I received an email last week from the Department of Health coaching me on how to fill out death certificates. And I've never really received coaching from the Vital Statistics Agency in terms of how to do a death certificate. But basically, I felt like they were saying, you know, you don't have to have a confirmed laboratory test for COVID-19 in order to make the death certificate be COVID-19. So
wait. Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that what you just said, I think is critically important. Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Well, last Friday, I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19. Now, we've not done that. If someone has the pneumonia after and it's in the middle of a flu epidemic, and I don't have a test on influenza, I don't diagnose influenza on the death certificate. I will say this elderly patient died of pneumonia.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my heart is sinking right now as you're telling me this. You're a doctor. Why in the world would they be sending you out information to fill out death certificates, whether the person's been diagnosed with COVID-19 or not, but then to say in the death certificate this person's death was caused by COVID-19? That does not sound right to me.
I went to the person in our office who does most of the death certificates over the last 10, 20 years, and I said, does this sound right? I had her look at the documents that I printed off, and she said, well, we've always been told that you always put down just facts. You don't put down any probabilities. You don't put any presumptions down. It's just what you know.
Z, why is that? Why should the listeners pause here for a moment and reflect on this idea? Well, why is it really bad when the number of cases could be greatly inflated? Why is that really bad? And the number of deaths could be really highly inflated.
I was kind of pleasantly shocked that Dr. Birch herself.
Yeah, Dr. Birx.
As she's been referred to, the scarf lady.
The scarf queen, yeah.
I don't want to call her scarf queen. I mean, I don't know. It's
Dr. B.
It's kind of like, sounds like kind of Scarface. I'm Al Pacino,
Okay, Birx, the Dr. Birx, everybody.
Hey, you like my little friend?
Well,
I don't want to go there. But what I'm saying is that when Dr. Birch, who's at the forefront of this, comes out publicly,
right,
in the news, and says, "quote There is nothing from the CDC that I can trust.
Nothing from the Center for Disease Control that I can trust." When you've got Dr. Deborah Birx saying that, I mean,
and then she
Dr.
goes on
Scott
to say,
Jensen,
she goes on to say, I said earlier in the show, that the counts were inflated by up to 25%. And so you sit there and you think, why on earth would we want to lie to the American people? I mean, who gains from lying to the American people? It's kind of like going up to your kids and saying, I got a prize for you. I brought you a present that you didn't. I mean, what do you get? I mean, at some point you sit back and scratch your head and go,
So we got Dr. Deborah Birx. She's the head person leading this whole coronavirus fight, right? She says, Dr. Deborah Birx says she can't trust the data from the Center for Disease Control. Okay. 2, Dr. Scott Jensen. Now 3, anecdotally, we have got a listener out there by the name of Lindsay Blankenship, based in Alamosa, Colorado. And listen to what she has to say about the way that you diagnose COVID-19 cases
in her emergency
and
room.
Deaths at the emergency room at Alamosa Hospital.
I work in Southern Colorado in a rural hospital in Alamosa. I've been here for about 5 years, but prior to that, I worked in several ERs, Muskogee, Oklahoma, Tulsa, South Tulsa, Hillcrest, and several urgent cares as well.
And I'll just get right into it. Are you being pressured to inflate the number? Are you being pressured to inflate the number of cases of COVID-19?
So we have been instructed or advised to include COVID-like illness on the diagnoses of most of our charts if they have fever and cough. So that goes against everything we've been taught as a PA or a provider or physician. When we diagnose, you state strictly facts.
See, you hear it again. And I don't know how many times we need to hear this to eventually debunk the coronavirus argument, the panic argument, the argument in favor of the shutdown. But I have an audio. This is my final clip I want to play today.
Well, I just want to ask you one question, Clay.
Yeah.
Who gains from inflated numbers? I mean, who gains? I mean,
Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, they get the total vaccine they wanted. The chip-based vaccine.
Who else gains? I mean, it's kind of like
Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Okay, you've said some very powerful people right there. I mean, Dr. Fauci's been ahead of our healthcare basically for
National Institute of Health. He's been there a long time. Multiple presidents. I mean,
5, 6 presidencies, you know?
Yeah, let me look this up real quick. Dr. Fauci, just so the listeners know, he has been there for a long
40
time.
years, I'm
since
gonna guess.
1984.
Okay.
A long time. And someone says, well, how did he get that position? If you read,
he got
book,
hired. Just say he got hired.
Okay. So I have an argument here. This is the final argument for keeping our country closed. Okay. I'm going to keep the audio.
Okay.
This is the best argument that I could find for keeping our country closed. The best audio clip I could possibly find. So here we go.
Oh, you're on.
You're on.
You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of like you for breakfast.
You eat pieces of for breakfast?
No.
I mean, essentially, that's the argument now. Now it's just like, hey, we're gonna.
The model's wrong.
The model's wrong.
We got to inflate the numbers to try to save a little face.
Dr. Deborah
but
Brooks
who's they?
is
Who's
saying
they?
we're not-
Who's they?
Who's they?
Who's saving face? Dr.
Well,
Fauci?
this right now, it's Dr. Fauci wants the world to have a vaccine, and he wants to put a chip in it to keep track. He calls it a surveillance vaccine. He wants that. Oh, he does.
Oh, yeah.
And
does he want that, or does Bill Gates want that?
Oh, he both of them want it. They want it. They want it. Jeff Bezos wants everything purchased online. He wants those vehicles. He didn't want to have those assets wasted, you know. And you've got Cuomo. He really just wants to keep the country closed down. He wants to make it a
Did
socialist
you see what
country.
happened with his brother?
No.
Who's
Well, tell me, because so much has happened with Chris Cuomo recently. This guy.
Oh, yeah.
The CNN anchor.
So he has coronavirus diagnosed.
Yes, I did see this.
And he goes to his new house that he's building in the Hamptons. And a neighbor catches him and says, dude, you've got the coronavirus. You're supposed to be quarantining yourself. And you're out here in the Hamptons looking at your new house that they're building for you. And he looks at him and says, shut up. You don't know what's going on. I mean,
well, listen
you
to
can
this.
Google it and look
Let me play the audio clip because it's worth hearing. It's worth hearing this. Tucker Carlson pointed out that, again, why this is so significant is Chris Cuomo pretended to be on a quarantine and in lockdown for a long time. So he would report every day the sham
down in his basement,
from his
working
basement,
out, just working with his shirt off, working out, just
talking
working
about
out.
how he's just been sacrificing, and how he's in the trenches with you.
Oh yeah,
this is Tucker Carlson's coverage of Chris Cuomo's jackassery. Here we go.
They don't live there.
Let me back it up real quick. Here we go.
Well, after he tested positive for the coronavirus, which was a scary moment, and we sent our sympathy at the time, CNN's Chris Cuomo started broadcasting his show from his basement. And from his basement, he delivered firm orders to all Americans, stay home, no matter what.
All right, so while most Americans are staying inside, or should be, right, if they're not out protesting like fools, they're not happy about being told to stay home. Staying home saves lives. And the rest of us should be staying at home for our mothers and the people that we love, and to keep us farther apart will ultimately bring us closer together in this cause. No matter where the virus goes, the way to stop it will always be the same.
BS.
Our collective conscientious actions. Staying home.
Okay, it gets so good.
Hey, proles, scamper back to your hovels. Go inside. Do you hear me? At that exact moment, while Chris Cuomo was demanding that America go inside and get back to their own homes, he wasn't taking the same advice. It turns out that at that moment, he was breaking quarantine himself, despite, as we said, being positive for the coronavirus. One day, Cuomo was spotted by a passing bicyclist who got into a tiff with him. Cuomo attacked the man later. Listen.
I don't want some jackass, loser, fat tire biker to be able to pull over and get in my face and in my space and talk to me. I don't want to hear it.
See, the hypocrisy of the coronavirus quarantine recommendations have truly reached another level.
I mean, Neil Ferguson has got busted, having sex with his mistress, his married mistress, which is, I mean, that's whatever. I mean,
sure, I
a mistress is a mistress, I guess. Mistress is that because he was married also, or because she was married? I don't know. I don't even know. Because if he's not married, maybe it's his girlfriend who happens to be married. I don't even know the definitions of all that. I don't care at this point. But Neil Ferguson, who's like scaring the world and yet sneaking around doing his thing.
Listen to this. You're going to love this, my friend, because the hypocrisy of the quarantine has reached an all-time high.
All-time high. It truly is.
At a certain point, it becomes
do what
laughable.
do what I say, not what I do. Right?
Absolutely.
That's the thing.
Okay, let me cue this up real quick. This one's one of my favorite ones. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go.
Uh-oh.
This is the Chicago mayor talking about why she got a haircut and you can't have one. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Let me cue it up.
You might also want to get your hair cut. People do, and in Chicago last month, that was not allowed. You couldn't get your hair cut. But the city's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, had her hair done anyway. When she was caught doing this, Lightfoot didn't even blush. Now, we played this clip for you on Friday's show, but it's one of those videos that no matter how many times you watch it, drops your jaw every time.
Yeah.
I'm the public face of the city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye. And, you know, I'm a person who, I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself, and so I got a haircut.
What in the world?
And you, I can't believe that you haven't played that clip more often because you own an industry that actually cuts people's hair that was shut down.
It was shut
which
down.
is crazy.
Total shutdown. And even right now, the way they've built the system, the way we're allowed to be open, but we're not allowed to be profitable. This is the move. They say you can have 10 people or less in the building at all times. Now, when you have a
which is ridiculous, by the way.
So now we're open at 9 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay.
To get everybody in.
Right. And
I've run the math. We can be like basically essentially almost break even.
That's a win
exciting.
right now. That's exciting.
That's exciting. I love
as we're coaching businesses
almost,
out there.
Almost
I
break
remember
even.
I talked to my GM at my auto auction a couple of weeks ago, right in the middle of all this jackassery. We actually had a week where we broke even. We celebrated. Pop champagne.
Come on.
I mean, it was like, woo! We broke even.
We've gamed the system.
And because we didn't lay anybody off. You know, we're not like we're going to do that thing where like, you know, just everybody just go.
Elephant in the room. We didn't lay anybody off either.
Just go.
We didn't do it.
Just go.
Isn't that crazy though?
It's absolutely crazy. The mayor of Chicago gets on there, and that's what's so funny is that there's two tiers, you know, and that's what happens in. That's not our country. That's not what we're about. I mean, the leaders should lead. If they feel strongly about something and they preach that something, then they should adhere to that something. And that's what breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart, Clay, to see our leaders that we've elected, and then they say, everybody else do this, and it doesn't apply to me.
How about the
It's
leaders?
like the mayor of New York. Did you see what happened with him? Being caught in Brooklyn. So he lives in Manhattan, and he's been caught in Brooklyn with guys
Walking
filming
around
him,
the park.
walking around the park.
Oh, I know.
With non-essential travel,
right,
and doing his stuff. I mean,
Doing
it's
his
just like
stuff.
it's like.
Let me recap the 5 main reasons. Now is the time to debunk the coronavirus panic.
Please do.
Okay, so let's
get
one,
this thing debunked.
Neil Ferguson's model was off by 25 times.
And that's his admission.
Right, that's his admission.
That's not anybody else saying, you know, Neil, I think you might be wrong. That's him coming out and admitting it.
2, Dr. Deborah Birx is saying that she can no longer trust the data coming out of the Center for Disease Control. That's a pretty compelling thing when the woman leading this whole charge is saying, I wouldn't trust the numbers.
Right. It's one thing to say I can't trust China. It's another thing to say I can't trust our own people.
I can't trust myself. Now, point 3. The coronavirus hypocrisy of the leaders is epic. If they were really concerned about their own lives dying,
really, come on,
they're not going to be breaking the coronavirus quarantine. No. Honestly, if you really thought
I've
you would
got
die, would you go get a haircut?
If I really thought
Come
that,
on.
I mean, I've been diagnosed with the coronavirus. I'm still saying, give me some music because you got me
you want
shut
some
down.
music? What do you want here? What do you want?
The little sexy music. Hey, baby.
Here you go.
I know you're married, but I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm Neil Ferguson.
They're using my models all around the world.
I'll show you my
for
model
predictions of pandemics.
I'll show you my entire
and
model.
I want a pandemic on you. Ooh. So come on over. You know what? Better yet, I'll come over to you.
I'll give you a vaccination.
Come on now. This is what I'm going to talk about.
I'll give you a test.
Yeah. Because I'm all over the news.
I'll be
and
like
I'm
a teacher.
I'm a big
giving you a
deal.
test.
Yeah,
Neil
baby.
Ferguson, baby.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm going to have to come out that I was lying about all the numbers. But until then, me and you, we got a thing.
Hey, baby, you look like a model, and I make models.
Oh.
See
We
what I
got
did right
that
there?
same model thing going on.
I'll just kind of get you with my little, I call it my syringe. I'll just kind of poke you.
Yeah.
Shaka-baba.
Yeah, you're gonna feel a little. I was gonna say
You're just gonna feel a little prick.
I know you said. I didn't want to say it. No,
No, I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
What?
I'm just reading the
Okay,
cue
that's
cards.
number 3.
Okay.
Go to number 4. We gotta. We massaged that one long enough. Everybody's out there going, okay, get to number 4.
Okay. The majority of the new coronavirus cases in New York are from people who have been staying at home, not traveling or working. 66% according to Forbes.
You know what? And what they did is they went around the hospital to COVID patients that are in the hospital.
on.
So these are the really sick people. Because if you get the
on.
COVID and you're not sick, you don't go to the hospital. Trust me, you don't do
Yes.
it. It's like the flu or it's like any disease. If you're not sick, you don't leave your house or you don't do your thing. So they went around all these sick people and said, "So where have you been? What have you been doing? What's going on with you? What in the world is up?" And they said, well, "I've just been home
doing nothing,
playing the Wii on the thing called the TV thing, and ordering takeout."
See, the standards for which somebody is diagnosed with as of having coronavirus, it's so broad and so loose. It's if anybody who has any type of a cough or flu-like symptoms, they get diagnosed as being COVID-like. And by the way, the hospital makes $13,000 for that. Now, let me continue the final 2 reasons as to why we should debunk the coronavirus panic and fears right now.
Here we go.
All right, the final 2.
Here we go.
False positive tests everywhere. You've got the president of Tanzania mailing in samples of a goat and fruit. The pawpaw, it's coming back saying that it has a human coronavirus. I mean, stop it. And then the 5th one, Abdul Latif Jamil. Are you kidding me? What are we talking about here? When was the last time you said?
Well, I'm gonna get their newsletter because they
tonight
are the authority.
Tonight, the number one country that is engaging in an oil gas war with us, a price war with us, Saudi Arabia, is predicting something that would cause us to stop using vehicles. Could they be related? The company is called the Abdul Latif Jamil Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. The director of it makes models that are off by 25 times when he keeps his pants on. They don't say that.
I will say that as married mistress she's almost model-esque.
Ooh.
I mean, she's not ugly.
Are you ready to wrap up?
Okay.
Are you ready to wrap up this show? Are you ready to wrap up this show?
I am. I tell you what, I am so tired of this people. If you've listened to the show this long,
come on.
God bless you. God bless you, by the way. And thank you. We love all of our listeners.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, if you've listened this long, please know that there are a core group of Americans that are saying, stop this
jackassery
stuff. Yes.
The media is going to falsely report it, and I'll tell you why. MSNBC is owned by Bill Gates.
No.
Bill Gates influence. NBC, MS, Microsoft.
No.
NBC, Washington Post is Jeff Bezos.
No.
So you can't be watching.
They don't have any influence. They don't have any influence.
No, they don't. None of their own companies.
No, they don't. They have any influence.
No influence. Well, that's what's in the show of the boom here. Here we go.
Are we ready?
2, 1, boom.